what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rugged red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land.
My name is Sam Kassab from Bet Nahrain Media, working in the movie El Cape Pioneer. Today we're in the city of San Diego, visiting one of those pioneers, Senator DEDDEH. How are you, Senator?
I'm fine. I'm pleased and honored to have you here, and I'm just delighted and thrilled that we have a chance to visit each other to convey to my Chaldean American community in Michigan, in California, as to how proud I am that we have reached the point where now we have our own way of conveying our feelings and our history to the community proper, to the community in both states, Michigan and California. You asked me something about my background. I am, of course, born in Iraq, but I was...
Where were you born in Iraq?
Baghdad.
In Baghdad.
And I was raised at age 3, 4, 5 months, and I would wind up, of course, in Ahwaz. That's where my late father lived.
And what was your father doing in Ahwaz? Was
he
it a business trip or
no,
merchant?
he was a chief accountant for Stephen Lynch Company. And he was there, and why? I'll tell you why. Because when World War I broke out, he was of age to be in the Ottoman Turkish Empire Army, and he did not want to serve, especially when the Ottoman Turks were against the British, and so he and several of his cousins ran to Ahwaz. Ahwaz was under the domination or influence of the British, and that is how he escaped. And so after the war, he married my mother, and then I was born and joined him in Ahwaz. Then he passed away in 1933, and I was only 12 when he passed away. So my mother brought me to Baghdad, and I went to the American Jesuit school that was established in Baghdad in 1932. And I stayed there in the 6th, 7th, and the 8th grade. At age 14 or 15, I had to quit and go start working to support my mother and 3 brothers, 2 sisters. But I went to school at night, and that's how I finished my high school education at night. And then World War and then World War II broke out, and I was, in a way, lucky to find two jobs. While I was going to Dar al-Muallimin al-Aliyah, Higher Teachers College, part of the University of Baghdad, and I worked as a censor for the British censorship because my English was fairly good because I had studied in an American Jesuit school. And at night, believe it or not, I was working for the British Embassy to translate into English some Arabic propaganda beamed from Italy to Iraqis. And I used to translate the Arabic into English, give it to my bosses, and I don't know what they did with it. And then I was there, in a way, lucky that I had two jobs, and the war was over. And then I, again, was lucky to have a chance to come to the United States. And then World War II broke out, and I was, in a way, lucky to find two jobs. While I was going to Dar al-Muallimin al-Aliyah, Higher Teachers College, part of the University of Baghdad, and I worked as a censor for the British censorship because my English was fairly good because I had studied in an American Jesuit school. And at night, believe it or not, I was working for the British Embassy to translate into English some Arabic propaganda beamed from Italy to Iraqis. And I used to translate the Arabic into English, give it to my bosses, and I don't know what they did with it. And then I was there, in a way, lucky that I had two jobs, and the war was over. And then I, again, was lucky to have a chance to come to the United States.
Your father passed away. You were 12
And my
years
father
old.
passed away in
You
Ahwaz.
continued your education in a high level in schooling in that time, which was Teacher Institute.
Yeah.
And kind of, who was supporting the family? How did you meet?
Well, I was working. You see, I was working when I was at the college. I worked two jobs. One in the afternoon as a censor, and from 6 to 9 o'clock p.m. I was working in the British Embassy. So I'd come home, across the bridge at the time, and come home exhausted, and had something to eat, and then do my homework and go to bed. And that was a routine way of life for me for about 3.5, 4 years until the war was over. And but when I went to the American Jesuit school, if there's any influence on me about why I should come to America, it was initiated by the Jesuit fathers. By accident, I stumbled on the famous statement of Thomas Jefferson, where he says, "We hold all these truths to be self-evident," and so on. And I asked one of the priests, and I said, "Father, what does it mean that all men are created equal? What does it mean?" And he explained it to me. And I fell in love with a country that I have not seen, I did not know anything about. And sometimes I told my mom, I said, "Mom, now that Father is dead, I should go to America someday so I can work there and bring you all to America." And you know how mothers, widows especially in the old country, she began to cry, and "I will lose you." I said, "No, Mom, you won't." And I was lucky to bring my mother and brothers and sisters all here. Election night, my first time running for the assembly, it was about 2 o'clock a.m. after midnight. By that time, I knew I was elected. And I called my mom, and I said, "Mom, I want..." And she said, "I knew you did." How do you know? She said, I was saying the rosary all night. So it has been. I'm like, thank you, Mom. And it was her prayers. I called, it's 2 o'clock our time, 5 o'clock Detroit time. I wanted her to be the first one to know that her son was elected.
That was first
And
person
she's
you
like,
called.
you know how they, yeah. Yeah. Nobody has suffered as much as my mother in raising us.
I was thinking by
She's
father
a
passed
good
away.
woman. Yeah. But you know,
How many brother and sister you were?
I have 3 brothers. One of them passed away, 1978. My brother George, who lives in Santee. I have brother Fuad, lives in Chula Vista. And 2 sisters, one older than I, passed away, and Georgette lives in Poway. So we're all here, except, like I said, the deceased. So I brought them all to this country, did the best I could to get them established, and like I said, we're typical people, middle class, no sense of pride, sense of narcissism, we don't have that. Later on with of it.
No.
Yeah. And one thing about my mom, when she lived with my sister, widowed sister, and she had all my pictures with governors, with presidents, with the senators, with the Kennedys, and so on. And if you visited my mom's house while my sister was fixing the coffee, whether you liked it or not, she insisted you see all the pictures, you see that. And the greatest joy I had, the greatest, was one day when Ronald Reagan, late Ronald Reagan, for whom I had a lot of respect, was giving a joint session speech to both houses of the legislature. I called my wife, I said, Mom, Marilyn, it's summertime, and why don't you bring Mom to Sacramento, because I want her to be sitting in the VIP seats to see her son in the Majlis. She did, and after Ronald Reagan finished the speech, I jumped and I said, Governor, I would be very honored if you had a chance to say hello to my mom. Of course. So he came with me. As we are walking to come close to my mom, I said, let me warn you, Governor. She thinks I am the governor. So I warn her. I said, okay. So I come, I introduce her. She shakes his hand, and then she is introducing me to the governor, and she says, son, governor. And so, of course, yeah. And these are the little things that I could tell about former President Reagan. The decent guy, a great man. And America has lost, by his passing away, a man who single-handedly with Pope John VI, John Paul VI, these 2 men, without firing a shot, destroyed communism. Destroyed communism. I have used that in my speeches, and you don't have to have guns. You don't have to have an atomic bomb. You have to have moral values, commitment, good standing, good belief in what you trust in what you believe, and preach it. Mean it.
Yes.
Don't just say it. Mean it. Is to say you'll succeed. One day, I was giving a speech at the governor's prayers breakfast, and he said, I want you to say something about faith, WADIE.
When you say the government, you know Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan.
At that time, yes.
Ronald Reagan. And I said, okay, Governor, I will. And so I spoke about religion in the Middle East, how all 3 faiths are the descendants and the children of our father Abraham, one through Ishmael, and the Christians and the Jews through Isaac and Jacob. And then I said, I ended my speech by saying, what does God want of us as office holders, as legislators, as governor and appointed.
Yes.
And I answered that question. I said, I am not able to answer that. But Governor, you know who answered this? Prophet Micah. And what did the prophet Micah say? Micha. What did he say? He said, for the politicians to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And
You
I
say it
sat
again.
down.
Love, word justly.
Do justly, love mercy,
See.
and walk humbly with your God. And I sat down. Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan both jumped. They came to my seat and they said, what a beautiful statement you made. What a beautiful statement. These are the kind of relationship I had. I did not belong to his political party, but I have a lot of good memories of the man and good respect for him. And I know he's in heaven. He suffered a lot. But that's my relationship with people, is mutual respect.
Yes.
Don't expect anything because you do your job.
Senator,
Yeah.
you involved in the politics in the United States, and you reach very high level in the state here. In Iraq, did you involve in the politics? Do you have any view toward politics or any political party?
Well, being in college, I did not want to do anything politically because A, I was not qualified, and B, I was not well aware of what really was going on. My commitment was A, to my mother and my brothers and sisters. I did not want to do something that will cause me problem by criticizing the prime minister. So what I did was keep my mouth shut, do my thing because I wanted to come to this country, and so that was my objective, and I was right. And as I look back, there were movement in. Well, this guy is a communist, this man is a socialist, this guy is this.
Yes.
To me, that was not what we needed. First, let me get my education and get a job. And
You were more
and
focused on your future.
And my focus was, when do I come to this country? I wanted to come to America, and I was right in my judgment.
So you're working on all this, you're focused to come to the United States. So what year decided to leave, and how that all new vision?
I was ready to leave.
You were invited by a friend, they sent you a letter or something?
Yeah, well, what happened?
motivated you?
Yeah, the way I can remember as a child, a cousin of mine migrated, went to Mexico, and
What's his name?
His name Eliestu, my father's first cousin from his mother's side, Eliestu they used referred to him Juan Jirgis Toraya. He was married to his name was Eliestu Toraya. Toraya, I don't know where he got that title, but that's what he had. So I know he came to America. Where in America, I didn't know. And so, but if there was anybody that influenced me to come to America, if anybody at all, were the American Jesuit fathers. And they were tremendous advocates of what's good in America. And they proved it in being in Iraq. You may or may not know this. When they started, Dr. Father Jamali, who would eventually become Prime Minister of Iraq, and he taught me philosophy of education. When he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, he was lecturing. And Dr. Father Jamali, who studied at Columbia University, got a doctorate degree, married an American, he fought the Jesuits. He thought that the Jesuits came to Iraq to convert non-Christians to Christianity. Jesuits don't do that. The Jesuits, if you are a good Catholic, if you're a Catholic, they want to make you a good Catholic. If you're a Muslim, to be a good Muslim. If you're a Jew, to be a good Jew. That is what they taught us. And I said that in 1984. 1985, I did not know what I was quoted. And I was quoted by ABC, NBC, CBS, because Ronald Reagan was asking those people who came as immigrants and succeeded politically, to what do they attribute their success. And I was interviewed, ABC, CBS, NBC, and I said, I attribute my success to first God, and B, to the Jesuit fathers. And we had a Jesuit unity in San Diego of all accident. And the Father Superior from Boston came to San Diego. And when I gave a speech and I finished, he came and gave me a
He was sitting there.
Here.
He was, remember, was he in Iraq?
No, he was not. I didn't even know he was.
But he knows you from Jesuit.
He saw that in the papers. He saw
the
that
profile.
yeah. So he came to San Diego and he says, Senator, you know why I'm here? No, Father. He said, then he reached into his pocket and got a clipping. He says, this is what you said about us. And I owed it to you to come in person and thank you.
What was in the paper?
Thank you for saying what you said about the Jesuit fathers. But I meant it, you see, I meant it. And I didn't know that eventually this will be read all over the country, but it was said. In people like me, there are maybe a couple hundred at the time, and everybody said, to what do they attribute their success in America?
You come to America. I mean, what year was that?
I arrived September 22nd, 1947.
1947. That was early time that Chaldean been arriving to America, especially to Cape
Correct,
Verde.
correct.
And you were what age?
I was 26.
26, very young.
Yeah.
You have a degree from
From
Teacher
yeah.
Institute.
I was the first person, first Chaldean,
Yeah.
who had a degree that arrived in this country with a degree from University of Baghdad.
Wasn't Salman Sesi before you, or he came after
And he
you?
was studying here.
He was studying when you came in.
He came in after me, and he was studying law in,
Okay.
in this country.
Okay, he studied law, you went back, and he came back
He
again.
came back again.
So, tell us about Tilkibnai in that time, in Detroit area
Yeah.
when you arrived. And
It
where did you
was-
stay?
I stayed with my cousin Shammamta, married to Marogo Dukhu,
Yes.
who was my sponsor. And I stayed with her for 6-7 months, and I did not like working in the grocery as much as I thought I would. Somebody told me that there is a school in Monterey, California, in which they teach 35 foreign languages. Arabic is one of them. And so I applied, sent them a letter, and lo and behold, 2 or 3 months later, I get a telegram, you're hired. And the Chaldean community couldn't believe that I would leave to go to California. And I said, yes, I'm going to California because I came to improve myself. I can't.
But you were that time, how long you were been in Detroit?
7 months.
7 months. And you right away you make that decision, and
Yeah.
you go into the place unknown
And
for
they,
our community, and you don't know anybody there. this
and
community.
they asked me in Chaldean, Ekala Monterey, لكذا. كم دي كاليفورنيا، Ekala كاليفورنيا، لكذا. دخل كذا، لكذا. هذه المحطة قطار بدون بطاقة مونتري وبدأت.
والله كريم.
والله كريم. كنت مطيلي ولا برقية حاضر للمدرسة، شغل تاكسي من المطار للمدرسة، مراي قبته حاضر.
قالوا ها معلم بيشتغل سنتر.
ومن تما إيري آخر زيرا خلتا قال ديترويت وقال لكم موافق لهم إيرن فين آخر السان دييغو أنا وآي آي مقريلة بقاو ساكرامنتو أنا مقريلي بقاو سان دييغو حصل لي وظيفة آخر بطبخ كانت تشاوخم شيء بطبخ عادة كلها وظائف المدرسين سيدة مليون
1959.
59 فعلا زيرو خورا آخر وانا خورا أبورخا حملوخهم من ماثل before we get to San Diego we stopped it's one of the cities and I thought I'd interview the superintendent of the school there and he said you're very highly qualified to teach, but because you're not born in America, we don't want you to teach. Okay? Here in San Diego, they were exploding, they needed teachers. And I sat with the superintendent, who first told me, I don't think we have a vacancy. but sit down. And what I thought would be 5 minutes and he'd shake my hands, it kept me about an hour and a half. Now we were talking about politics, economics, history of America, politics in America. And then he said, all of a sudden, I think we have a vacancy. Let me send you to such and such a place.
He liked you. He liked your knowledge. He was
Yeah.
interested.
And what did I say? I emphasize, and I always emphasize, that anybody that lives in America has got to be the luckiest person in the world. America is not a perfect country. No country is perfect. But when you compare this land to any other country in the world, we are the best. We are blessed. I used to tell my students, sometimes facetiously, God has two eyes. With one eye, he watches the whole world. But one eye, he keeps on America. And so we are blessed. This is not a country that could claim that we are English or French, or we are everybody. We are, as I told my students, and I tell them until now, we are a nation of nations, a nation of sub-nations, of cultures and subcultures. And we had better learn how to live with each other. And I think what happened in the last election is an excellent example that
Accepting each other.
America proved itself who we are, that we could go beyond race, we can go beyond religion. When Kennedy was elected president, you may not have been here in 1960. Every American Catholic walked with a straight back, as if there was steel, with pride, because we've elected the first Catholic. Today, every American should be proud that the mistakes this country had made 150 years ago in slavery is gone, it's behind us. Now, anybody, if they put up their mind to be president, to be senator, to be governor, to be whatever they want to, if they work hard for it, they can get it, they can do it. And that is what I tell my grandchildren, that you can. I just finished reading a book by a very famous author, Doris Kearns Goodwin. She is an authority on the history of America and the presidency. And the book, 700 pages, about Abraham Lincoln. As I read it, sometimes I cried. Sometimes I felt a sense of pride that in America anything can happen. Anybody can, and here you're looking at me, even though in a small way.
Yes.
In a small way. A Chaldean, speaking English with a foreign accent, coming over here, earning the trust of Americans, Irish, English, Black, French, Mexican American. And I won my second term to the Assembly by the largest majority of every American congressman from California, American senator, American assemblyman from California. I got the largest majority, beat them all.
When you were in Detroit, the community, they were very small, a few families. What do you remember about Tilkibnai community in Detroit area in that time?
I have very fond memories of that, because it was exactly a community that everybody knew everybody. Everybody came almost from the same neighborhood, from a village with a population of 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people. They were intermarried to each other. They came over here, they were first cousin, second cousin, or Schwau as they call it. I heard the word Schwau repeated a million times, and I used to ask, what does that mean necessarily? Oh, this is big sense, because when you're a neighbor, you're a Schwau, you're brothers and sisters. And I cannot recall a night that I did not go with either Moroki or Yilda Saroki to Jack Nager, Joe Archer, Tom Haken, Tom George. And what do? They sit down and drink coffee or beer or a liquor. And what do they talk about? Little business, but they always reminisce about their life when they grew up in Tulkepe. I must have heard those stories a million times, said over and over and over again. And they said it with a sense of pride in their heritage, a sense of community related to each other, in bond, in blood, in language, in history. This is what I learned from them. They were hardworking, and they made it by the sweat of their brows, and each 3, 4, 5, sometimes 4, would put together $500, 2,000, and they buy a store, 4 of them. And then they make it a little bit, and then 2 will split and go open another store. And that is how they did. They worked hard and at the risk of their life, because their stores, and I tell you why, at the risk of their lives, because their stores were in areas that were not physically very safe. Why? Because they did not speak good English yet, and so they could not make big attempt to go into middle class, upper middle class neighborhoods. So where did they go? To areas where a lot of poor folks lived, and so they worked there, and they earned their living the hard way. They open up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they close at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and 2 shifts.
7 days a week.
7 days, 7 days. There is no holiday. And I used to ask when I first came, I thought, I worked my first 6 days, Saturday too, how about Sunday? No, Sunday. So you work till about 3 p.m. and then they close at 3 p.m. So you work. Holiday, same thing. Now, why on Sunday on holiday? Because big stores, supermarkets, did not work on Sunday. They closed. And that is how you made a few dollars. Now, of course, their life is more miserable because supermarkets, now they're open 24 hours, 7 days a week, you see. So it's tough, but they made it. And the pride that I have in my community, very strong pride, and I said it publicly when we dedicated the building. I said, we are Chaldeans, and some of them that came about 70, 80 years ago, 90, I caught up with them. Al-Ra'il al-Awwal, I caught up with them. And some of them couldn't read and couldn't write. But look at the children here. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're scientists, they're engineers, they're business people, successful people. This is who we are. This is who we are. You see? And we will continue to be. We have a judge in Detroit. We have 2 judges over here. We have doctors over here. We have doctors in Detroit. 50 years ago, doctor? Are you kidding me? No way. We have it. We have it.
You come, this is life in Detroit. You're only living a short time over there, 6, 7 months. You come to Monterey. You didn't get a job over there. You get it where after that?
Oh, I stayed teaching for about 6 years.
In Monterey?
Monterey.
Okay, what you were teaching there?
Arabic.
Arabic.
Yeah.
You were what kind of student you have?
We were teaching 35 foreign languages in that school.
Okay, so
Arabic was one of them, but very much in need. Why? Because after World War II, and I'm talking about 2 years after World War
Yes.
II, the Middle East became a very vital political area in American national interest. Why? Because there was
The state of Israel?
The French were kicked out of Syria and Lebanon. The Balfour Declaration was in play, and in whether there will be or there will not be a fulfillment of the Jewish dream of establishing a Jewish state. And then all of a sudden, of course, the mandate that the British had over Palestine was ended. And so now the British said, we're pulling out of Palestine. When they did that, then the Jewish community in Israel, Ben Gurion called the establishment of a Jewish state. Now, what does that have to do with American foreign policy? A lot. Now, there are 22 Arab countries in that part of the world we call the Middle East, as
Yes.
you see, and America had a tremendous close relationship with every Arab country. And so it was important for us, especially after World War II, coming out as the only country that not a single inch of its territory was attacked by the enemy.
You were teaching in Monterey,
Yes.
a student in this. Tell me a good accomplishment that recognized by state or other teachers or the principals that you accomplished in that time.
Well,
And were you, in the same time, were you interested in getting a little bit deep to understand American politics in that time?
no, no. The purpose of the Army Language School, which is still in operation today
Okay.
as we speak,
Yeah.
is to try to train American military
Okay.
into one of those languages where America needs an expert. When the war broke out in Iraq,
Okay.
about 4 years ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago, 4 years ago, I complained I complained to somebody that Americans don't have in Iraq qualified people who speak Arabic and speak English fluently. And that word went to the company that was sending interpreters to Iraq. Then I got a message, this man wants to see me. I called him, the president of Titan Corporation. And so I went and sat down with him, and as we sat down, and he said, what can you tell me about Iraq and about the Arabs and the Muslims? And I said, do you know the difference between the Sunnis and the Shiite? No. So I explained it to him. Do you know how many Arab countries are there? Do you know how many dialects? In Iraq. In Iraq, we have 3, 4 Arabic dialects. In Iraq. He says, this is all news to me. And guess what? For about 19, 20 months, I was his chief advisor that traveled all over the country, trying to recruit people. And I would ask him, I mean, I'm not going to hire you just because you're Chaldean or you're Iraqi. No. What do you know about Arabic? Is there a difference between the Arabic spoken in Basra than the Arabic spoken in Mosul? Of course there is. Of course there is. In Basra, to ask you what's wrong with you, he'll tell you shmalak.
Yeah.
In Baghdad, shbik.
Yeah.
In Mosul, ashbak.
The dialogue is different.
There's a dialogue.
So they need to know it.
And you've got to know that. Another thing is, and I spoke in Virginia to some of the classes there, and I said, you go to Iraq, don't you ever give your hand to an Iraqi woman, because women don't shake hands with men. Be aware of that. Don't act as if you are, you've got
So you were helping them as an advisor for them.
Exactly.
Understand? So you teach in that school, and after that, where did the senator you become interested in American politics? Where did that start?
From Baghdad, I was interested in politics because 2 of my cousins, one of Uncle Yaqub Muradi Sheikh, served in the Iraqi parliament.
Okay.
And Uncle Izzat, his nephew, from 1944 to 1958, when the monarchy was moved. So I had interest in
Yes.
in
Do you remember any other Tikibnai, especially Tikibnai? They were in the assembly in Baghdad, during
No,
the month.
we had, Tilkabnai was only Yaqub Murad Sheikh, and then his nephew, Yaqub Dad, and his nephew Izzat. But we had...
Before that, we didn't have anybody else.
No, and our patriarch
Was it
in the...
Bidriak in assembly too?
No, and our patriarch was a member of the House of Lords, Majlis Shuyukh.
No.
Yeah, the chief rabbi. That is when Iraq was a sensible, moderated by the British, and they knew how to do it. You see, they knew how to do it. the House of Lords, as they called it, as the House of Lords in England, was patterned after it, and members who sat there, so there were people of high stature, the patriarch, the chief rabbi, 4 or 5 big Ajil Eliyahu, they sat on, people with big names, you see. In the House of Commons, as it's called, Majlis Nawab, then they had people elected, but of course we did not have proper elections. But in a democracy, and this is what a lot of people don't understand what the word democracy means. And a democracy is not like you go and take a shower and change your shirt and now you're a Democrat just because you took a shower. No. Before you really have democracy, look at America. What do we have? We have experience. We've been experiencing elections for 250 years. We've practiced it for 250 years. You have to have a good middle class. Iraq did not have middle class. You have to have an educated, relatively educated. We don't have that. You're supposed to have some experience. Had Iraq stayed under the monarchy for another 20 years, today Iraq would have been one of the most advanced democratic society in the Middle East. But they didn't have a chance. Lebanon came close to it, but not quite, not quite. That's why the only democratic, whether I agree with it or not, but the only democratic state in that whole area is the state of Israel. They fight, they debate, and they have election, free election, as we had here last November. This is a democracy, and so I laugh when people say, well, now we have democracy in Iraq, as I've heard it a million times. That's not true.
Okay. Senator, you teach in Monterey, you moved to San Diego later. What year did you move to San Diego?
1959.
You came to San Diego in 1959.
Yeah.
What was the community here?
We didn't have any.
We didn't have any.
No.
Nobody was here before you?
I was one, and there was Aziz Habib who, after I came here, he left and went to Michigan.
Okay.
And then there was Faraj Habib who taught with me in Monterey. He had moved here, but his wife had a job here. That's it.
And how they start coming in after that? Do you remember
they start coming visiting, you see.
Okay.
And I went to Detroit several times, and I said, you don't know what you're missing, you should come to San Diego, look at, and they began to come to visit.
Okay.
And then I cannot, I like it. These only Torah. And so one after one, and when we were at Shamash Elia this morning, and Shamash Elia, when he came, I knew.
So you pioneered in San Diego, you pioneered in politics.
In politics, yeah. Yeah. Well, I always had that in my blood, even in Iraq. But I kept my mouth shut because in Iraq they chop your tongue for you, Yeah. You can't do that.
So you're coming here now, Senator, sorry. You were here in San Diego, and you were teaching in San Diego at the beginning?
When I arrived, yes, I taught.
Where you taught?
At a high school, Sweetwater High School, National City.
Okay.
I taught American government.
You tell me any accomplishment you were teaching students about some issues you were just mentioned about electing the president and those kind of things. What was those kind of things? And
well,
the principle
my method of teaching was different than a conventional way.
Okay.
In a conventional way, okay, you read chapter so and so, and this is how we elect a president. No, I said no. You take the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
It has 6 articles, okay? And I want us to act,
Okay.
each article. So, what are the powers of the president? What powers does he have? Congress, what powers does the Congress have? And then, before that, we debated how the Constitution of the United States should be written.
Okay.
And the students, those people would come, each one of them will take a position. Then the principal of the school came to see how we were doing this.
Okay.
And he was so flabbergasted.
These are the students you're talking about?
No, the students in my class, they were so impressed by their teacher.
This is that time?
Yeah. what the students of my first year teaching there, they were so impressed by me, by their teachers, and I say this with humility, not pride. They said, you cannot be President of the United States. I know I can't. Why? Because Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States says that to be President of the United States, there are certain qualifications. One is you have to be born in the United States. And B, you have to be 35 years old. Okay, well, age is no great deal, but I was not born. So what they did in this, and they gave it to me on the last day of the school, in the General Assembly. And what does it say? It's whereas, that the Constitution of the United States should be amended.
You were teaching, and new communities started arriving here. That was 1961. From teaching to run to assembly.
Yeah.
Where did that move came in?
Well, I've always, I tell you who inspired me, really inspired me, was John Kennedy. He started running for president in 1959. And every young man at that time, and I consider myself young, thought that it is about time for a young, brilliant, Irish Catholic to be president of the United States. And I worked my heart for him.
Campaign.
And for John Kennedy, and never met him. I never met him. And so how do you do that? So we established clubs, democratic clubs for Kennedy. And I was elected as president of one of the clubs. And then we amalgamated all the clubs together, we gathered them, and all of a sudden I'm the head of a club that had 350 members. And so we had an assemblyman who became a judge, and so I asked the club, I said, shouldn't we now select somebody to run for this seat? And the board of directors, I had 12 of them, they said, yeah, we should. And okay, who is that person? And unanimously, they said, he's right here, you. You. Just like that.
Okay.
And that's how we started.
You were not even thinking about it.
Oh, I was thinking about it.
You were thinking about it.
I was thinking about it. And you. In fact, I was thinking about it in a way that assemblyman, Dick Donovan, he passed away. It was a friend of mine. And he said, WADIE, I know you would like to be in the assembly. Yes. Why don't you talk to Governor Brown, who was running for re-election, Pat Brown. And if he appoints me...
Isn't Pat Brown run for president after that?
Not Pat Brown, Jerry Brown, his son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If he will appoint me a judge, there'll be a vacancy. You run for it. And so I talked to the governor. He was running for re-election. I said, Governor, is it possible to do that? He says, I like Dick. I'm going to appoint him a judge. And all the rest is history.
Oh my God. So they opened the seat for you.
Opened the seat for me.
And that was just...
Yeah. And it was...
But you deserve it. You were serving the community.
I was serving...
Educated.
I mean...
Politician, part of this campaign, or Democratic campaign.
Yeah. Nobody considered me as a
Outside.
politician.
Okay, I'm
There's
sorry.
part of the community. And you know what people will say? You have taught our kids. You are a patriotic American. You love America. We love you for it.
In that time you were running, would you have any support from the Chaldean community?
In Detroit. I didn't have any here.
Let's talk about that. You went over there to Detroit.
I went to
have
Detroit.
a campaign there?
I did, not the campaign. I went there. I called Salim Salafa, Alam Hasili, Gori Ishaqi, and all these people. I called them. I said, I am running for the seat. Come on over. So I went, and they had a coffee in a room not bigger than this one.
Okay.
About 20 people.
What year is that? 1960?
1965.
Okay.
65. And I will never forget it. Alias Kenaya Alam Hasili, for whom I worked in Detroit.
Yes.
I worked for him. And Alias Kenaya said, Ma qaralai. Taw shummu khub gawa. I said, they call it a ballot.
Yeah.
And shimmi taw gawa.
Hey.
Man, I don't care whether you win or not. I want to see a Chaldean name on a ballot. He reaches for a checkbook, writes me a check for $500.
That was first kind of...
ان اني وقتيو اخر كلها اي ماي ترين ماي بطلني انت ما شوت من ايام لما شوت من ايام $1 بجيبي. Big money in those days, big money.
So far away, you don't see that many politicians from one state to the other. They could go and raise
One to
funds.
my people.
Yeah.
And you know, nobody said it better than Arias Kenaya. I تلفي له آخر تشقت له جاب ببابه.
It was nice to hear it.
جاب ببابه له جاب الأخوات له. So I كنت محكي له بعد دخله محكي له. هذا أي خمشام مني. هاي تقول له ترى ما ولا أمه كذا خلقت حاله يوم شو أتمنيات بدو لا قصة ما نايمة.
نعم. Okay, now يمو خلنا حسيلا وابشتا.
مشتاق.
So إيه قد كم خبرت ولا بث الانتخابات
كل بطلة.
كل بطلة. بصح لك.
إيش تبع الهول؟ ميرا ليل كله نفصله وردية. من أي كم ما جت الآخر ما يتخلص منك كم طالب.
وتبى سمبلي كماش نبشتغل قاعة.
إيه
بس سمبلي.
اشتغل شنو؟
اشتغل شنو؟ بعدين
شاغر بسنة.
نعم.
مرشح لي يعني وبطلب قاود أصوات الثليلي دمرنا خلال لا براموثة بس مكي خوثة أكبر أصوات تحصل اللي any politician بكل أمريكا.
بالنسبة للبرسنتج.
75.2.
75 against other.
Yeah, لا خلينا نشكي 75.2 قال تاريخ أمريكا. بس جورج واشنطن. Yeah, so I was.
قاود السنة. وقت إيجا governor وهو رونالد ريغان.
لا رونالد ريغان بلطل خدم لي شات الشتو اشتي شوي أربوشة ويبليطة أنا شات تريك معنا من هو governor
براون.
مو دوك ميجن جورج أربناي جورج دوك ميجن أي خدم لي المعاوية سنتر أنا من قاعد أسملي أبي أخوه عمروا أخني شرقيين كبيرة من فوقني قرابة مؤاور بناية بخات تصريحات أمي يا لا لكم خير من اللخ يا لا بريخة تمام.
كنا مرشحه السنة.
هاي كنا نعم تفضل.
من عفوا. كنا مرشحه السنة آخر يعني مشروع بحملة كامبين ديوخ. إثوا يجا بش كابرت الكبناء آخر.
إثوا تقريبا بلطيوت إيجا إثوا لن إيتا. إثوا لن يمكن شوية معنا عائلات.
So دخوة support community دي ينطالو.
ليه بعد وري إيطالي فوت يعني أنا كلها بمتشي من ناب الكهوني لا هذا يا بس عملوا بس مصالوا لك بالله بار لا لأن إثوا.
They support you financially from there.
If I needed it, they would.
How about in Detroit area?
And I didn't need it.
But you didn't go for the campaign.
I didn't go.
The second time you didn't go to
بس
Detroit.
زلي كنت مرشح لي جاي to Congress. هذا مرشح لي جاي to Congress. زلي ديترويت كمودي لي أكبر حفلة تامة هذا كم جمعي لي باره. خسيري قال تريم مفوت قال primary. وبتعادي ده كونغرسمان فلنا وقيد أمرنا قيد. لأن نقابات العمال هذا زلا أمي دواء أمي مدرسين قم أنا انتخابات بربيشن إثباتا اقتصاد لاخدها تقريبا تقدير دول هذا هو حكومة كاليفورنيا بلد ما اتنخى مادة بدستور محملينها مؤقتا مجلسين انت صلاحية موقفي ولا مو يعني تقطي بار بس موقفي له طب تتخطى فيها يشتغل مدرسين ثلاثة اللي نقابات المدرسين ميرا كي بخلق أمرة القامة إنه آية لك وضد فوت موقفتها تقد ما الداعي قلنا ليه بليلة هاي ليلة عملي دخاء غير مسؤول أنا مسؤولي وين مسؤول لازم ليه بيجاون نخو ثلاثة القامة لكي ما جي البارع وأنا بوقتها لا يديلي إنه بدأت يومه أني بيش بلاي كنت مرشح لي جاني ككونغرس أني هر المدرسين أنا كمعين إنه جاي في الأمير الذي يأخذوا له طالع
أبي مشهد هذا المشروع أنتم.
كنت مرشح لي جاني مجلس إنه الشيء النواب 1992.
1992 من رؤساء أمريكا تغزيلو تيو منيلا
كمان انه لما كيخوث اول تلك بنادي مغذيه بقاود اوفل اوفيس عنهم ام جيمي كارتر
بيا مشاتها
19 مريم 72
okay
yeah,
زماني was individual invitation with the family or was
لا لا
أنا
من المؤيدين لجيمي كارتر هو كبيرة
yeah.
وكنت فيل آخر فيل لسان دييغو أنا ونأثوالي اجتماع بقعد مونتري كان وديني تلفون من الوايت هاوس من بريزنت الهاو بقعد سان دييغو لازم تامايت بقعد مطار مستقبلتكم بابا أنا لتي لا بطاقة طيارة لا شو عندي we've taken care of it ويبي حجز سيارة بسباري كما ثاي المطار ثاني آخر مستقبل البريزن أوكي هاي البريزن نارستي تيو تاما أنا تيو الدبنوخ أكيد بكوتوا لهم هذا البريزن ليبي مانيوال الفاميلي إنه هاي أصله عراقي 1979 عفوا 79 أصله عراقي لبنان مير من كذا تام بهالعراق كومني كذا طارق عزيز ماني خلنا سعد بن حمادي سعد بن وزير الخارجية اللي مشضرنه خبزاله خل بغداد
جيمي كارتر
جيمي طالع كثير Mr. President كمان بإنجليزي when the President of the United States asks an American citizen to do something for America, it's a patriotic duty. I'm on my way to London, but I will go to Iraq. Is that what you want me to do? That's what I want you to do.
What he was trying to, what was the question he needed from you actually?
Very simple, very simple. 1979 in January,
yeah.
The Shah collapsed.
Yes.
Khomeini comes to power.
Yes.
America has no relationship with Iran. Iraq does not have diplomatic relations with America. Why? Because in the 6-Day War, you got to know the history of American foreign policy and Iraqi policy. The 6-Day War, every Arab country blamed the United States to have had something to do in supporting Israel. And they all severed their relations. They 6 months later, every Arab country resumed diplomatic relations with the United States. خدولته no ماني عراق. فده السبب. ده إيران زلة الخليج من بحيث قاعد.
They want a base in the Middle East.
They wanted a base in the Middle East. They wanted ونهاوي ورخيشة عدل أمي. نهاوي ورخيشة عدل اديو بتاعه دخيل اي حسني مبارك أمة أمريكا.
الحمد لله مام.
بشتغل بتاعي. أنا أدبخت أي دخدي وتيو أختي أمة حسني مبارك قاوت القاهرة. قال لكلت ما قمت بلداي. ولو إنه أنا ليون بكونغرس بس ما إيفيلا دي من دو
Middle East.
من دو
فهمت روسيا عقلية الميدل إيست.
محكي عربي طاوة محكي إنجليزي طاوة كذا التاريخ العرب كذا التاريخ الأمريكا ودمقرية بس معها مع كل أسف الوحيد هاي لك انت بسياسة نبدأ منها خير دلتي ثقب قاوة دلم خويلة يعني تمستقبل أمريكا والبريزيدنت قمعي كم شطرنا رزم دي ليش خزيه بياون نسخة منه
نعم
هاي شغله ليه في الخاء دي الخديمة أمريكا دي الخديمة بوظائف دي أنا خديمة ليه تاو بيشطوا مني بالمستقبل لكن لا ده ليه نقمتي فكنت كم شطرنا أي طالع مزية التيجا العراق خاء ديمقراطيك بريزيدنت جيمي كارتر وخاء Republican President Ronald Reagan. 1984 زلي 1979 1984 in جحلن 1985 علاقة دبلوماسية ديرة
روسا خلنا جيت يوم مي من أمريكا من واحد تطلع علاقة مي أمي كلينتون
بكلينتون في علاقة معي أنا وهاي عشيلة أمد عال جور بغدادكم قد مني والقل محاضرة ويا نائب رئيس الجمهورية يعني لك مستعمل لنا اني انا بلتقي اذا كما حتى انا عشيلي امد جاسم محمد
لا تخا ان ناشي شخصيات او رؤساء دول الا ويلخ دور دي يبقى المجتمع الدور يعني خدمه بالاخص لان السياسه خدمه لا
زلنا المصر ضيوف مصر زلنا انا وعي وخلنا سنه انا وانا رئيس الوفد دائما انا بإيد خازن شنوده بابا شنوده يعني هو الاختلاف امد حسني مبارك وبنفس الوقت ابقينا نخازخ رئيس الجمهوريه حسني مبارك سفيرة امريكا تامو طخا كاثوليك كاذي والتمالي تالياش قينايا كاذي علاقة تيمي ولا كذا بس كان كان مثلا مقابل من وزير خارجية مصر أو شو كلنا أمريكاني وهو بعدين بعربي بحكي لكم إنه معالي الوزير يعني بدنا نتشرف مقابلة فخامة رئيس الجمهورية قبل ما نرجع لأمريكا. يا أخي أنت تحكي عربي؟ والله لكم أنا عراقي بطلب غشيتك هذه تلفون سفير ديان محكي Senator, it looks like you might have a chance to see the president. You know what I want? No. بخلصت من محكوية من the president هاي رقم دي شخص وذي تلفون خازن ما محكي له. ألقى بالصدفة شنودة زي الخازيلان خوش أبدا. خازو كاتب لهم تلفون إنه president الخازيلان مبارك. اوكي يلا نجيب مبارك لا انشلا كوري فيما لا لو اري انشخني بس لا وقت تتخاذوا بريزنت غدا من وفد ديال وسنتر بختوا ميرا خازهم بقرة كثير كذا فضلوا كله قديش قال لي رئيس الجمهورية ميرا ابن العرب فين؟ يكون انا ابن العرب اجلس تولدتني عاودتي وهذا 38 دقائق المفروض كل ما اتخاذ عليه 13 دقائق 13 دقائق بعدين خير كنا فخامة الرئيس يعني وقتكم غالي واحنا اخذنا من وقتكم كثير من لا يهمك ادقى اخي بواره قب قضايا التلقاي وفد من اليابان وفد خلنا اثيا من الصين وفد خلنا اثيا من تركيا بعد خازن رئيس جمهورية اجلس كمان انا قلت له الاي مش بي ال او دي فلسطين
ياسر عرفات
عرفات ياسر ايجا ومعترفه ياسر معترف لاسرائيل انه حق تخيل يعني تعيش انا قلت له العرفات يا عرفات لازم تعترف في اسرائيل انا اليوم كونغرسمان ليون يونايتد ستيتس ان مسائل اني بس الناشونال بس ما لا خاذ انه انا عراقي وسنتر وقلباء كما حش بيو كما حش بيو.
When you were in the Senate in California and you were in overseeing the transportation department, you have a lot of accomplishment. Let's talk about this thing serving the California transportation department.
Well, my accomplishment was mostly on the transportation and education because I'm an educator by profession, you know, and transportation because it's something I love, and I've done a lot. You don't know San Diego. As we leave, we're going to take 805. You see 805. You see Highway 5. And you will see 125 you go further to the east. 125 I created it by law. It cuts بنيتا أنا عشنا بنيتا أي ناشد بنيتا عقلي في المنطق زي ايتك عشت اخا امن وجيت باتن جي قيصيله اني كنا اي اديا هي مقنع لاتا ملا حجي احمد كون بابا اي اد هاي واي زلزال شواسر ميل من الحدود والسانتي كنا اصرخ مشاسر سريبات بخروي بزاله يا ويلم حقي لكن نصوروا مستقبل الترانسبورتيشن تاع سان دييغو كله دكتور 54 انخذت 54 كذا من بحر هاي واي 5 متصله ب 805 125 كله اديا لذلك كنت حمل لهم ميل محكمة الترانسبورتيشن هلا خلهم باقي وسؤال well you're an expert on it that's okay that's okay yeah.
So that was your accomplishment 125.
125
How about 94? Did you involve in it?
not 94 yes I did I'm glad 1994 Martin Luther it's not 1994 it's Martin Luther King Highway
Okay.
yeah كنت قيل مارتن لوثر كينج مدينة سان دييغو ماركت ستريت قرارب شمد مارتن لوثر كينج تجار عقلي فيها ميرا لك بخلاية وذو عريضة قلبات كمر من شمه من ماركت ستريت دير ماركت ستريت قوية هايوي 94 خازت ددها قاسم لها اني ناشي كومة جنوب 94 كوميلا شمال دية كوميلا من 94 والماطت تقريبا لا ميسو قم لا ميسو ما كانت ما الاخر داب فيشل
Spring Valley.
ها لا سبرينغ يا
Lemonegro.
ها
Lemonegro.
لمقرا ايش واسر ميله
نعم.
ودي تلفون تخا قاشت كومو كومنا اتوخو معنا مقلبن 994 عند ستيتي ليل دي السيتي مقلبن دار نشمد مارتن لوثر كينج ما يربع بدخلخ من الرئيس مجلس النواب ولي بران كومو زلي انا سنته ولي كومنا هذا من دوذن مير قال الاي حمل مجلس الشيوخ خلى بيديو داتي اخر مجلس النواب بياونا خلا بالسردقايه مودنا اني كومو كنت ستيت لو محكي لها شو بدي كنت خلصت لها زيو داروا علامات دان زالوا 94 مارتن لوثر كينج فري واي انا كمون اني كومو كنت كرخشن جيبي بس عباده لك عديلي.
Your service to the community, a lot. You've been honored. They put some building under your name, and they put your names in the buildings. Let's talk about this. What was the idea? Where did this idea come from? And you were out of the Senate in that time.
I was.
They put some your names in some
Right.
Where did that come from?
I'll tell you how that started. I mentioned something to a supervisor. I said, I have created the court in the South Bay in Chula Vista, the courthouse there. Is it possible to name something like after me? No, we can't do that. Okay. Then, when they were building this building, WADIE Arab, he didn't tell me. He had a friend in the assembly. He mentioned it to him, and that assemblyman knew me very well. And he said, "Look, this will be a great honor to honor this man who's done so much for all of us." And so, then all of a sudden, I get a phone call from my son. He says, "Dad, once you send me, I have 2 books, all the laws that I have, all the bills that I have introduced in the assembly, and 1 volume in the Senate." He says, "Could you send me the book that you introduced in the assembly?" I said, "What for?" Then never mind. Well, I don't argue with my son, so I sent it to him. About 3 months later, WADIE hands me a resolution that has been approved by both houses of the legislature to name this building after me. So WADIE had something to do with it. Yeah.
Very good.
But yeah, go ahead.
You come here 11,000 miles away, Tilkipnaya, and you are really accomplished so much. And you've been speaking the cultures, and there's still carry in you the taste of Tilkepa, the flavor of language of Tilkipnaya, the accent of Tilkipnaya. I mean,
أيام تلكبنايا أنا تلكبنايا برد تلكبنايا
بس يشوف-
ساوي بابي صوتي يمي كلها تلكبنايا لا وأيام حسيت الصوتي ميت بدد بهواز أنا طفل عمري تتيت لشن متوالي بخب أول برونو ونقاود عشيرة متوالي بقبلة وزداوز أمر بروني ودراود بشغل النوخ أنا تلكيب وتامة بخزال وخدامة مناتد أمته بشغل النوخ هاي أمر والي الآن حاصل ولا تعمل صرت صوتي من وانا مني لا نشوى ماما يما قارو خوالا يما مني انا شوى انا بحكي ادقى شغله فخر بقى انا بحكيمي وين برت الشموكه ديال شموكه سما ممكن مني لا قاعد اوكي بحكيم ادقى يعني من انا عمري طلش ان كل ديون تلقطناها سورة محكوها بها عرب لكن ما هي هذا سورة محكوها بها وأي صوتي يعني الله محاسب كلها يعني زلة نيثن قديشة أيوة قديشتها مقيمين وعلى شيء بإشتم خشكة آي ومحسي الساوي يوسف ضد خزن الإيتا زوان الإيتا قشمي خير جيجي قراءة من تلكيب ويتامو كنت لي لأمريكا صغير تلكيب راحوا خم انه هو سميه جيزيله زلي لا نتخازن قماد اثم زلي ولتيوا بيتكم من رابيش لا ملو وديع ماكو تهبروني يتخبق النخ من حسيكم كم رابي في نشتني ذو خذ منه زين زي الامريكا ميسي هلا هم تاو امك وبنشحت تام بروني بنشحت صلوات
يعني ثيرو خاخه ونجحلوخ يعني بيكوز كتلكبنايا واي وخاصة تلكبنايا بلواخ طموحين دخل مواصفات تلكبنايا برايخ
بلاخة جبارة اخواتي كل علمه ايبن حسنات كلش كبيرة وهم ايبن خاصة ايبن لكن حسنات دي مش كابري لا كورة ما ايوخ قعينو خا قباخو امد عندي لابو بخايا قخو امد عندي لابو كاكا قصفه بقاود دعوات دي غبنه بقاود احزان دي هذا اخواته اخواته نيثم فرق بيناتهم فرق بس تحت ماي
خا سؤال خلنا بريطم العراق من زمان وحدات دبري لعب عراق دا وهذه ومن عندي لعب براي بقاود العراق كله وقضايا السورية دي بلاطون تغيير الدستور بعراق من دانا دخلت مستقبل السورية بقاود العراق
يلا
ثانك يو اخني ممنونين كلش استاذ
انا بشغل انه امي لان انا بالنسبه لي طعن كون كان يلا
نحكي هذا خليه وبسيمه وبصخره كبيره وثانك يو الوقت